Herzlich willkommen in den Geistesblüten. Wir freuen uns wahnsinnig, dass wir einen der Überlebenden, hätte ich beinahe gesagt, hier haben. Alex Schulman, sein Roman Die Überlebenden ist ein Schweden, ein Riesenerfolg. Nun ist das Buch übersetzt worden in 33 Sprachen. Es ist auch hier schon am Brodeln. Es gibt die ersten Rezensionen. I just said that your first novel, Die Überlebenden, is a main success in Sweden, and I'm so happy to host you here for a few minutes because like everybody wants you, and like, as you're in Berlin right now, and everybody longs for your book. And even though it's quite new, you got a few press releases.
But my editor and my press boss Petra told me that we have to go to a very beautiful bookstore, and then she took me here, and she was right because I was walking around here so impressed by what you have done.
Well, thank you so much. Thanks.
It's fantastic.
Well, it was on me to flatter you because of your book, because like I really liked your book, and I just said this was translated into 33 languages by now, and in the internet I saw a little film of yours, and you said that you really wanted a German copy of your book. Why so?
I know that the German book readers are very special. I think that I spent my summers when I was younger hitchhiking from Stockholm all the way down to the south of Europe, to Spain and France. And I was studying literature. I was crazy about books. And every time I got in a car in Germany, I ended up talking about books. And as soon as I crossed the border to some other country, they were not as interested in books as they were in Germany. So I have this picture of that the Germans are especially connected to books in a way that's unique. So that's why I think that my picture is that the Germans are the most book-loving people in the world. So that's why it was very important for me to have the book out here.
Well, thank you so much. The many times you came to Germany or other parts of Europe before, was this traveling with your brothers, as you have two brothers yourself, Kalle and Niklas? Did you travel by yourself, or was it always the three of you?
No, I'm always by myself, because I had this idea that that's the only way to, travel, the only way to meet people without the security of someone else beside you. Because if you have someone, then you talk with him or her, and then you don't take in the world. But alone, you have to do something all the time. So I was like hitchhiking, and I was trying to make contact, but with not so much success from time to time. But I think I learned so much from it.
Well, thank you. Because I just picked up that only because you're brothers doesn't mean you have to be the same persons. Having the same parents doesn't lead you to be in the same kind of character, in the same kind of taste or interests as these three in your book, The Überlebenden. They're in real life. There are three brothers, or in your book they're called Benjamin, Niels, and Pierre. Benjamin is the second son, and he's the one who tells us the story. You can't talk about a book without talking about the police also, because this is what this book starts with. Somebody must have called the police, and all three brothers are in front of some house, which is like the fourth main character in your book actually. So why did somebody call the police?
Well, that's the question that you ask yourself. What happened? And I tell this story backwards. So I start. It goes on for one day in present time, and I tell this day backwards. So I start with the ending in a way, with three brothers. They're soaking wet. They're bleeding. They're crying. They're hugging each other, and hopefully a reader asks themselves, what happened here? And then the next chapter is 2 hours earlier, when they are fighting. And then you ask yourself, why are they fighting? So I tell it backwards because I thought it could be a nice way of creating a mystery. But also, it was so intriguing because I have a friend that is a police officer in Sweden. And he told me that when they catch a suspect and they interrogate him, it's a technique used by the police that they always tells the suspect to tell what happened backwards, because it's harder to lie when you tell a story backwards. I thought that was quite interesting. And it's also like that when you're in a trauma. I think that you take it step by step backwards, what really happened, and then you go step by step to understand what you've been through. So that is why I wanted this story to start with the ending in one way, and then I have this other storyline that goes chronological, and then in the end of the book, the stories, the backward story and the chronological story, they meet in the last chapter.
One might think that you're taking sides by choosing Benjamin to tell the story instead of a neutral or some unknown narrator. Why did you pick Benjamin to be the one to overlook the family?
I think I did it because he's the one that records things. He's like the radar in the family. He's the one that's always is silent. He notices things. He knows when there's going to be a fight even before the fights occur. And in some way I was that person in my childhood. I was the middle son. And I was very much, that person who tried to keep everything calm. And I thought that was the easiest way of telling the story, was to use that person that sees and hears everything.
All three brothers, they're very different in interests and, as I said, but even in manners. And there seems to be a darling son, because but I'm not sure about a darling son, because the way both parents treat their sons, they always pay attention to, not always to three at the same time, but they choose their favorites and depending on the certain matter, like school.
This is so important to me, and I mean, being a father myself, I think about that so much. I remember in my childhood, I was always the one that was going to be, I was the athletic one. I'm the one that's going to be a sports star. I was not the intellectual one. I was, you were going to run in the Olympics, my father told me, but he never gave me any books, because it was my bigger brother that was going to be the academic one. And I think that there's a scene in the book when the bigger brother is sitting in the kitchen with his parents, and they're applying for the high school. And I remember that scene from my own childhood when that happened. My brother had the full attention of my parents, and I thought to myself, in 2 years' time, that's going to be me. Sitting there with my applications. And after 2 years, I found myself sitting alone, in my room, because my parents had already decided who I was. I was not the person who was going to make a career in the academic world. I was going to be a football star or something. And I was so disappointed in that. And I've been trying so hard to not be that parent. But it's very hard. I have 2 daughters. They go in the same school, and this spring we had this chore in the school that everyone was going to write a poem, a poem, and they were going to gather all the poems in one big book, and the parents in the school could buy the book. So my daughters wrote a poem each, and one of my daughters' poem was awarded as the best poem of all in school. And I read the poem, and it was really good, and I was so proud of her. And I was like, you're a genius, you wrote this poem. And then as soon as I had a dinner at home, I shouted at her, come here, I have to read your poem out loud for my friends, and things like that. And it was hysterical. And after a couple of weeks, when I did that again, I read the poem out loud. The other daughter came to me when the people had gone home, and she said, you know that I wrote a poem too. But I had forgotten about that, because I just saw the talent of one of them. So I made the same mistake as my parents did. And that's a shame, I think.
What I liked about your book also is that you tricked me as a reader, because like of course I was curious what happened to the three, why anybody or somebody must have called the police for, but he also tricked me in the very little things what people got to get aware of in a family. And because like when you first mentioned the names of the three, and I thought, okay, Niels and Benjamin, they must correlate in a way. It sounds similar to me, but Pierre, Pierre is totally different from the rest. So I thought maybe it was on the parents that they longed for someone very special, that they longed for a life in Paris. And because to me, Pierre didn't fit in. And when I read that he couldn't hold in his emotion, not even as a small one, when he peed in his pants, or later on when he hits other people, I thought maybe it was because of this name Pierre, because like it must have, to him it must have felt, well, I'm somewhat different. Maybe I belong to a different family.
Yeah. But I think it's so interesting with the names, because I'm so bad at it to name the characters, and during the process I change name of them all the time. It's so easy, you press Control F, find and replace, and you can just change the name in 1 second, and I did that so many times. And when I spoke to in my first interview about Pierre, the interviewer said this character Pierre, and I didn't know who he was talking about, because in my world his name was Bjorn, So I just changed names all the time. So, but I like that things can have a meaning even though it's not intended from me. I get that a lot, that people read things, and I think that's great, because that's in your mind, the reader's mind. And it's not really, it doesn't have to be intentionally from the author.
And as to many families, there's a certain secret besides the police we will reveal while reading a book. And there's another main character, I just mentioned it, it's a house. It's a summer house in Sweden. It seems to the family, it seemed to be kind of a shelter. It's like where life was almost ordinary, and they all longed for an ordinary life. They didn't long for the stars, but somehow it never was ordinary. And none of the five noticed it.
I think that's interesting you say it's a fourth character. It's the craziest place in the book. It's so lonely, and it's a place where you can get mentally disturbed on, I think. And in my life we have this a summer house, and I can't return there because it's too many memories from before, of things that happened there. I remember when I was there a couple of years ago, and I couldn't even walk on the grass because I saw myself as a 7-year-old, run by, and me as a 12-year-old, and my dad was there, barbecuing, and my mom was down by the lake, and it was like a crazy experience to almost, the present me was such a small part of myself when I was there, if you know what I mean. But that building is very important in my life, and it's also very important in the book, because it's like it's what you say. I never heard it before, but it's a good reading in it. It's a very important character.
So may I ask you one last question before I will ask you not only to sign these books, because we have plenty of your books inside, of course, because we want everybody to read your book. But one last question, even though it correlates to the second last one, in Germany there is a boom, like a demand for books who take part in the countryside. Like people move from the cities towards little villages, and this is where many of our books play at the moment. Do you witness the same in Sweden?
Yes, during the pandemic, the need for buying these houses by lakes in the forest. 5 years ago, no one wanted them, only Germans, because lots of Germans come up and buy houses in the middle of nowhere, and that's a good thing. But in Sweden, that was like, why are we going there? But then the pandemic struck, and it's very much so that the prices on these houses go up enormously, and people are leaving the big cities. So the prices on the apartments is going down, and the prices on the houses on the countryside is going up. So I think that's a greater movement. But I thought about that, when I was, depicting that summer house, that it's very much, the idyllic summer that I think that you Germans have of the Swedish summer. It's not like that in Sweden, but there are some of those places that are like that, and it's like a crazy. It's so much, the Swedish summer that it's almost impossible. It's like it's almost like a fantasy, and maybe that's why the German readers will like the book.
It's only whole Germany watches our film. Maybe it's time to reveal one secret. Your brothers, your family, they're involved into the film industry also. I think one of your brothers is a filmmaker, and he's an actor also. Did he strive for your plot for a film? Will your book be a movie?
Yeah. No, we are now in the last negotiations with an international film company for the rights, but I can't say so much because they're making me say nothing with these documents I have to sign. But I think that in just a couple of weeks' time, it's going to be a done deal. I think it's going to be a good movie, though, right?
Of course, it's a very good book, so it will be a good movie also.
Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for dropping in. It was fun to host you for a few minutes. I don't know what's next. Paris, New York.
No, Iceland.
Iceland. Yeah. Okay. So, well, thanks for coming to Germany first, and we hope to meet you again, maybe with your new book coming up. In
2022, next autumn, maybe in Germany, the winter 2023. And then I want to come in there and have a reading, if it's possible. Thanks so much.
Thanks for... Bye. Hallo.
Hey.
Hallo.